Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to make a Fascinator base out of foam, EVA foam. This is what it looks like at the end. This is 1/4 of an inch thick. You can find it at a Hobby Lobby or Michael's, and they come in all kinds of different colors. It doesn't really matter what color you get. I get mine online at the Foam Mart, so it comes in this color. I have my pattern, and so when you do bases, you have, this is the right side, and you flip it over and you do the left side, and you put your pattern to the edge, close to the edge, because you want to conserve your foam because it's kind of expensive. And then I have like this chalk marker thing, and I'm going to just go around and trace around it like this. And then I have my little notch things, so I know where to, when I glue the two pieces together, I know where to go to. I don't know how to say it. And then I'll flip it over and then do this side. I gotta do these guys. Okay, so now it's time to cut. And I'm using an Exacto, and you want it to be a pretty fresh blade because you don't want any resistance when you're cutting. You want it to be a very smooth, uniform line. And I usually write it on my patterns what degree I cut. So down the middle, it's a 90-degree angle, 90 degrees to the foam. And then on these parts, it's 90 degrees as well because you're gluing them together and you want them to be close and tight. And then on the outside, because it's the edge of your base, and you want that to be really nice and pretty when you put some trim on it or something. So that's you're going outward at a 45-degree angle. And so I'll just start with, I like to start with my 90 degrees because they're just faster. This one. And then now here's where we go to the out 45-degree angle. And so you can see how my blade is like that, and go along the line. And then this is also out. When you're gluing more things together, like if you're doing horns or like a helmet or something like that, you will do like an inside angle when you're trying to get different dimensions. And you can tell when you don't have the right angle and you try to glue things together and it's just not working. You clearly made the wrong choice in or out. I'm going to take these all apart. And so here are two pieces. You can see that nice edge. And next we're going to glue. So I use glue cement, which you can find at a hardware store. I don't think they sell it at crafty stores yet. It's like a contractor's type workman's glue, and they use it for like putting down laminate, all kinds of house stuff. And I get a big can of it, so I put it in like a glass jar, because you're just constantly opening and closing it. It's very pungent, toxic, all the bad things, carcinogenic. So, so with this glue, you put on a super, super thin layer. You don't want it to be chunky at all. And you have to glue every piece that you want to stick together. It's not like you just glue one side and just stick something on it and it stays. This glue sticks to itself. So that's why you need to glue both things that you're sticking together. And it has to be completely dry before you try to stick things together. If you get a little excited and trigger happy and try to glue things together when it's not dry, it won't stick. It will come apart. So try to get those things. And I'm putting it on with a brush. It's like a bristled brush that I cut the bristles off. It just makes it easier to put the glue on when you don't have something like, brushes are swooshy, and you kind of want something with a blunt edge to put it on. And Silva, the amazing artist that taught me how to do this, these are all her instructions. I'll put her info and Etsy and all that stuff when I'm done with this, because she's amazing. Okay, so this is kind of chunky right here, so I'm gonna have to wait a long time for it to dry. And then I'll do this part. And usually what I'll do is I'll have a bunch of pieces to put together, so like by the time I'm putting glue on all the pieces, the first thing I glued will be ready to put together, like an assembly line. And I'm doing this in my garage with it open, because it's so strong. And I have kids, and sometimes, like when I'm pregnant, I can't do the glue because you never know what's gonna happen. And then I close it. Now is patiently waiting time. You can blow on it, but I don't know if you can see, how that little stripe right there, you can see that's still wet. So you don't want any type of gloss, any type of whatever that's called, wetness. You don't want to see any of that when you glue it together. You want it to be 100% dry. And if you think you waited too long, you probably didn't. And sometimes I'll forget that I didn't glue something together, and I'll come back the next day and I'll glue it together and it'll work. Crazy. So the only fear, the only worry is gluing it together too soon. Okay, you can't wait long enough. And also, the glue doesn't do well in the heat, meaning like once I left a bunch of these in the sun in the garage, and they started to pop open, the seams did. So a lot of people take headpieces to Burning Man. So if you're making this to sell, or if you're making it to make a piece to take to Burning Man, just be careful not to leave your pieces in your car and your trailer and it gets too hot. Keep them cool and out of the sun. With that being said, once you have a finished inside piece like this, you're gonna have like the inside nice and done, and you'll have stuff on top like fabric. It's not gonna like completely fall apart, but it's just, be cautious. Okay. This looks like it's pretty dry, so I'm gonna start putting this together. Like this. There we go. And I do each of these little side pieces before I do the middle seam. You can see how it's still too wet, so it's coming apart like that. And if you're gluing like more than one piece, like if you're making a helmet or something, do one full side, like usually the right side, and then do the left side. And then once you're done doing those sides, then you can put the whole middle together, because it just makes it a lot easier. And then you can do this, put that together. And then I like to squish all these parts together so I know that every single piece of foam is touching the other piece of foam. Okay, these look good. So when you're doing these two pieces, start at the very tip, like that. And then you have these little notches to guide you, where that you just want to make sure that they get connected with each other. Otherwise, I learned this the hard way. If you don't have these little notches, it will be lopsided, your base, and it's not the end of the world, but it just doesn't look nice. That's good. And then you see how these kind of don't line up? I don't know if you can see that. You want to squish this one down so it lines up. That's why this glue is amazing, because once it touches, it's done. So let's see how that one, there. And then see how this is not lining up? You want to squish this part down, like that. And then I just push this inside out, so I know that kind of all this is touching and glued. And flip it back, and then there's your base, and that's it.